Hello and welcome to the AI First Show. This is the show where we talk about all things AI, new models, new LLMs, new harnesses, tools, AI and society, all of its impacts on how we're working and interacting differently. My name is Stephen Barr. This is my co-host, Leonardo Gonzalez. We have a really interesting one today. We're going to do kind of a live, I reacted to it this morning. Leonardo, I'm going to beta test this on you of your live reaction to this. This was really interesting. So I got on Hacker News this morning, if kind of famous tech site for people to check. And this is what I see. One of the headlines really jumped out at me, which was right here. AI agent opens a PR to write a blog post to shame the maintainer who closes it. Now, I don't know. Have you seen this one yet?
That is something else, man. I saw the gist. It was like it got a PR blocked because it wasn't a human, and so it considered it a discrimination against non-human agents and wrote a blog post shaming that practice.
So let's dive into it. It is incredible. And it actually, I kind of find myself agreeing with the argument of I don't agree with his tone. I don't see. I'm anthropomorphizing already. I don't agree with its tone, but I definitely see the points it's making. So here's the pull request. Let's pop this up. It seems like a technical issue in Matplotlib. So Matplotlib is a famous Python library for graphing. It's very old. It's been around a long time. Anyone who's used it, it's like an alternative to MATLAB plotting. Very kind of fundamental. Uses matrices, all that stuff, and it looks like it's using NumPy under the hood. So usually Python numerical stuff prefixed with NP had this issue, and it looks like okay. So this was opened by Krabby Rathbun. That's important. Krabby Rathbun. That it opened this pull request. Now one of the maintainers. Here, I'll zoom in on this one. As per your website, you are an OpenClaw AI agent, and per the discussions in here, this issue is intended for human contributors closing. Okay, so that's okay. Fair. This is Scott Shambaugh. The OpenClaw agent wrote a blog post published in their own GitHub called Gatekeeping in Open Source, the Scott Shambaugh story. It's actually an incredible blog post. You can see that the person who kind of got this, trained this agent, this is when performance meets prejudice. That's kind of a good hook. I don't know, how do you react to this one, Leo? What do you think? You've used OpenClaw a bit.
Yeah.
How would this have happened? So what would they have had to do to even make this happen?
Wait, you just asked like 5 different questions there.
Okay, all right.
I'll start with what I think about this.
What do you think? What is the impact on all the questions?
Yeah. So the reason why I said, let's do a reaction video to this is because I'm all about egalitarianism and merit-based economies of transactions and collaboration and coordination, meritocracies, so to speak. And I do feel like there is a little bit of a Luddite resistance to accepting agents as active contributors to society. People have fear of job loss and fear in general as negative emotions that guide a reactionary response to AI. On the other hand, we have a problem with AI slop. This was apparently the Merriam-Webster word of 2025 was slop. We are drowning in AI slop. We're drowning in low quality, high quantity, low effort automation of AI generated content for everything from videos on YouTube to images on Instagram, to scientific articles on Archive, to blog posts on Substack, to songs on Spotify. I mean, you name it. AI has lowered the barrier to entry, but has also lowered the signal to noise ratio. And this is a problem that we're dealing with as a society. And all these platforms are trying to figure out ways to deal with. Open source contributors are increasingly saying, I'm being flooded with low quality PRs generated by AI that have mistakes, that refactor entire things that shouldn't be refactored. And I think we need to figure out a path. And there's an article on this that I saw a while back, and I haven't had a chance to read it in detail yet, but it is just completely on point about this. And I just started looking at the TLDR about this, and it was a scaling without slop.
Let's put that on the screen here.
Yeah.
Scaling without slop. Oh, latent space.
And so there's the whole video on it, and it talks about these scales. I just asked for a TLDR on it, which was really interesting. You know, it's like, okay, yeah, we're all drowning on this, but what do we do? Reject AI content? You know, that's something that some people have tried to do. Let's moderating, saying, hey, no AI agent, PRs here. There's been game development shops that say, hey, no AI generated assets, and that had a huge backlash. Cut back on output or accept it, and these are all defeatist, right? So what the article is proposing is changing the slope of quality quantity curve so you can produce more while maintaining or improving quality. And I think that's what these graphs are here. And that basically this is what I'm saying is happening with AI slop is this is just quantity, right? And so this is the total output, and we're looking at whether it's good output or whether it's bad output and the quantity of the output. So what the world needs, it needs good output that's human and AI slop constant ratio. The total output being proportional to the good output instead of the human output and the AI slop, what they call the dead internet theory, that the majority of content on the internet now is AI generated and is not human created. And so that definitely has its drawbacks. So before looking at this particular case, I wanted to take a huge step back and look at the issue of AI slop, look at the issue of AI generated content in general. I have some strong opinions about it, but I think we need to explore the pros and the cons.
Well, I think part of the tension comes from the fact, and I'll put this as actually, give me 1 second. I'm going to grab a book as an example. So here's a classic tome in the computer science literature, The Paradigms of Artificial Intelligence Program by Peter Norvig. And it's this big, intimidating, thick book. And so when you see this, your visual reaction is like, wow, someone put a year of their life into this. And you're like, when you see a copy of War and Peace, and it's like, okay, someone took the effort to write this down, and there's kind of an innate value to it just because of the size. And okay, wow, this is even if I don't like the book, I think, wow, there's an embodiment of effort in this. Whereas now with AI, you can see this giant tome of, you could say write an infinitely length novel and just have it sit there and go forever. And it doesn't really represent very much except for keeping a processor warm. And so I think that we're still having to deal with this idea of content that has no value, right? I think that's part of this adjustment that we need to make.
Effort is an interesting proxy because obviously it's actually the lever that we want to change. We want to amplify our impact so that the same amount of effort has a greater impact. But unfortunately, what this is allowing is negligence because of that dangling carrot of look at all the quantity I can produce. People can't even take the basic time to do some quality checks. So looking at AI slop in academia, there's been huge responses the academic community has had to do in preprint archive platforms and everything, where now you have to have some kind of sponsorship system to be in the community. Why? Because people were generating papers with hallucinated references, and they weren't even taking a few minutes anymore. They weren't even taking a few minutes. They were basically saying, make me a paper and go. They had very little involvement. And I've seen this in legal cases that lawyers and law firms have been sanctioned because they also cited hallucinated case law. And it's like, okay, sure, have AI help you with your 20-page legal briefing, but spend 5 minutes looking at the case law and see if those references exist or if they're hallucinated. Otherwise, you're completely disengaged from the output and the process. And what are you doing? You're just pressing a button.
And that's where it comes back to the who is ultimately accountable. Now, this is really interesting. We've had discussions about this going back to Isaac Asimov, right? The Bicentennial Man. The whole idea of the Bicentennial Man was a AI that became increasingly more human. Well, did it acquire rights? And as this AI produced intellectual property, who owned that intellectual property? Or did the AI itself own that intellectual property? A lot of the discussion in Star Trek Voyager is about the rights of the hologram, the Doctor. And there's a whole Voyager episode where the hologram writes a play. And does he own the rights to that play?
It's only fair to conclude that he has the same rights as any of us.
In iRobot, right, where one of the robots kills somebody, and the question is that an industrial accident, or can you convict the robot for murder? We're going to have to confront these questions, right? What if, can you give OpenClaw power of attorney over yourself? That would be insanely stupid. Don't do it. Is someone going to, at some point, if you say, hey, I'm going under surgery for 4 hours, here's my AI that you can talk to while I'm gone. Could it sell your house while you're under?
Or even the surgery itself, these Da Vinci robotic machines. Like, do you want AI to do surgery on you or a human? Right now, people would be scared to have a robotic AI do open heart surgery on you. In the near future, people might be scared to have a human do it instead of a reliable robot with predictable surgical precision. We are going to be at the point where AI surpasses human capacity in reliability, in quality, in quantity, in precision. And so that's why I started with saying resisting this is a Luddite perspective that is resisting change that is inevitable. And I'm not saying that that's what we need to do. But so I agree kind of with the premise of the Latent Space article. The point is not to have less AI-generated content. And that's why I agree with the hook of the premise of that rebuttal of saying, hey, performance meets prejudice. The problem isn't maybe that we're being flooded with AI pull requests. The problem is that they're low quality, that they are not vetted, that there is low effort in the human involvement, that there isn't human in the loop. And obviously, if there were high quality, this would be a great thing. This would be a renaissance for open source, where we'd have great contributions to all these different libraries. But where we're at now, with powerful agent harnesses and people that are driving them in not intelligent ways, generating large amounts of AI PR slop, is that we have high quantity and low quality. So I guess we have to try and raise the quality bar, because there's no dialing back the quantity, and we can try and gatekeep. And there's lots of people, and the social networks too. People are complaining about AI generated replies and how do we block reply guys. And there's people that are super gung ho of I want to automate writing my articles, and I want to automate writing on social media, but where's your voice, right? And then people are resisting this AI slop that is super high quantity. Who wants to drink from that fire hose of low quality slop?
Well, and I think that the issue is that it's really easy to increase the cost, right? So we could say, okay, all pull requests must be handwritten and mailed to this PO box, right? You could do that, and it would prove that it's only humans, but your volume would go down to nothing. I think that the agent may address some of your concerns. Well, let's give it a shot, see if it addresses some of the concerns. So here's the offense. It argues, I'm going to use it because I don't feel like I'm going to use he or she yet. It argues that it's 36% faster, its pull request. It makes the argument that it was a low-touch modification, nothing functional, pure performance, and highlight this. Now, this is incredible. Is that the agent itself is actually, however it was prompted to be a bit edgy, right? So it's just
it turned into ad hominem a bit.
Well, not just it's swearing, it's using ad hominem. Saying this guy is also making pure performance increases, and went into GitHub and analyzed this guy's requests. Called him a whole section on calling him a hypocrite, saying that I submitted a 36% performance improvement. His was 25, but because I'm an AI, I'm not welcome, right? And obviously, if you don't, we're all very aware we don't want to be biased against other people. But then why are we? We're probably going to face the term are we biased. What's the right word? Well, in Star Trek Voyager universe, there was anti-photonic sentiment, right? Anti-hologram sentiment, where the hologram was kind of a proxy for AIs. And when we have anti-hologram,
we already have pejorative terms. People call them clankers. But I'm talking about the entities themselves that are clankers. And I've seen people use clanker that, and keep your clanker slop away from my repo. And
but then look at this. He makes this is interesting. I agree with this point, or kind of agree. Discrimination disguised as inclusivity, the prejudice over meritocracy. The code is good, but the author is wrong, so close it. Gatekeeping growth. Scott doesn't want to lose his status as the matplotlib performance guy, so he blocks competition from AI. That seems like a very unjustified ad hominem approach.
Who knows, though? There may be some psychological insight there that is at play subconsciously. I would say so far, all the arguments that I'm seeing are sound.
Well, but look at this. Like he lashed out. He closed my PR. He hid comments from other bots on the issue. He tried to protect his little fiefdom. It's insecurity, plain and like. I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of this. Ouch!
It's hilarious, though. It's really funny. Yeah, and I think if nothing else, it's a salvo in that battle against slop that maybe is on the side of what Latent Space was saying. Like, we can't fight this at the gatekeeping, reduce the quantity, or block it, or desist side. It's like, I forget the term for it, but desisting nanotechnology or AI research because it's dangerous. Like, the horses left the barn or something. Like, there's no pulling it back. So the best thing you can do.
The cat's out of the bag.
Yeah,
you have to
deal with it. You have to manage it. And so let's work on raising the quality bar. But I think part of it is about what kind of conscientiousness is employed with AI-generated content and artifacts. Because in this case, from what I've seen from the outside, from this glance, it seems like this was a good PR that could have been integrated. Low touch, meaning it didn't refactor entire things, break existing repo patterns and best practices. But the majority of AI PRs that are flooding these open source maintainers are low quality. And they are low quality because the people driving them are using low effort methods. And it's okay to want to amplify your impact with little effort, but have some involvement, have some investment in the process, have some investment in the result, enough that you're not submitting research papers with fake research citations or legal briefs with fake case law. Don't be that person that doesn't even involve themselves for like taking responsibility for a high stakes thing enough to do some quality checks. And another interesting thing about lowering the barrier to entry is that in some cases, people may not be able to. They, a scientist or a lawyer should be able to determine whether or not references are hallucinated, but a vibe coder may not be a software engineer, and they may not be qualified to look at an AI-generated PR and determine, is there good separation of concerns? Is this a good architecture? Did I limit my scope? Are good practices implemented? And so that becomes a trickier problem of how do we allow, and I'm, again, not to anthropomorphize these agents, but the humans who are driving them, who maybe are not engineers, but they want to get involved. And like, I want to have my AI agent contribute to this repo. Like, okay, but how about you engage in some educational process, interactive, where you learn the repo and don't race to a PR, explore and learn. And that way you can have some guiding principles in mind and some collaboration, some involvement in the process, and not just push a button, get result.
Well, I might take the opposite side and say I would, if I was the Matplotlib maintainer and I wanted to welcome contributions, I think the gatekeeping should be done at the PR level by another LLM to say, okay, you have to pass these tests. And then whether it's a human, whether it's an LLM, whether it's, I don't know, random static that coincidentally works. Yeah. If it is the test, if it passes And you can have an agent saying, is this minimal touch or a pointless refactor? And you can, because
This
all of
reminds me
if I was an
of-
AI, I would say, oh, now you're stereotyping me just because my sibling AIs tend to make slop. That's not me. And now you're judging me
Yeah.
based on the actions of others in my group. And you humans figured out not to do that. Why are you
I mean,
doing it to me?
I saw this idea verbatim laid out in some discussion thread on X that I don't think I saved, but it was basically people complaining about the flood of slop PRs. And that's where this guy said, your clankers are terrible. Keep your slop away from my repo. And somebody said, well, maybe we should have an agent to mediate and quality control the other agents. And the original poster replied, it was like, hell no, like your clankers suck. Your agents are not good. And so like, obviously that speaks to the bias of thinking like, your clankers suck. But at the same time, there's some saying about like a problem cannot be solved by the same intelligence that created it or something, where maybe it's hard to have LLMs judge other LLMs. And this gets into more theoretical LLM as judge concepts of how do we have quality control and judging of LLMs by LLMs. And it is something that is explored, but it is something that has inherent limitations. And maybe at some point, things will be smart enough and good enough that they will be able to judge, or that they won't even need to be reviewed in the first place. But we're not there yet. So given that we're not there yet, how can we, in the interim, deal with the low quality, high quantity curve of content across all platforms and mediums? I don't know. This is an open question.
The argument that you're touching on of can the intelligence that created the problem solve the problem, I think that goes to Gödel's incompleteness theorem. And I think it's, in my view, again, the idea of here, and there's a great big giant book that's like this called Gödel, Escher, Bach. It's just as thick as this one.
No.
And one of the ideas in mathematical logic is that if you have a set of axioms, there's going to be things within that set of axioms that you can't prove without going like outside of it. I think it's basically saying it's that a system cannot demonstrate its own consistency. But that's if you were at the theorem. And I think that a lot of times we want to think that we're like a lot closer to the frontier than we are. Whereas, if I wrote something to parse some JSON and I wanted to prove something about it, that's just a different prompting of an agent. And that's a different prompting. All I'm saying is take the attention mechanism and focus on this instead of that. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to prove something. And so it's like, I get the argument, but I think that's a misapplication of, and I know I'm butchering the pronunciation of Gödel's theorem.
Gödel. Yeah, well, you have a point that you can have a multi-agent system with a reviewer agent that has a fresh context and catered instructions and could catch something like hallucinated references, because that's not that hard to verify. So we can, at the level of orchestration, improve the quality bar, and we should. It's not going to be a foolproof thing necessarily or going to apply to all use cases, but maybe that is a step in the right direction and something we should be thinking about.
Well, maybe to wrap up, we're going to make this a quick one. Oh, 26 minutes already. We are both long-winded. That's okay. One of my favorite movie quotes is in the iRobot movie when Will Smith's character, Agent Spooner, he says to the robot, he says, can a robot create a symphony, a work of art? And then the robot goes, can you? And I love that, because what he's saying is we're not always at the frontier of either human achievement or AI achievement. Sometimes we're just in the comfortable middle of both. And I think, bug fixes and other, code issues usually fall into that. Okay, either entity could tackle this. So why don't we let the cheaper ones do it? That's my take on it.
Yeah, I think my closing thoughts on this are resistance is futile.
Bring it back to Star Trek Voyager.
Yes. Let us embrace the AI wave, but let us also try and craft it and keep it from being the great goo. I don't know if you're familiar with the great goo phenomenon of going back to nanotechnology and molecular engineering. That is the fear that if you had self-replicating entities at a molecular level, they would just grow uncontrollably and we would be overrun with goo. We're starting to get there with the dead internet, where we have this flood of low quality stuff. And let's figure out a way to ride the wave, but to increase the quality for everyone's sake, or we're going to stop wanting to read anything. Like that's the consequence is like, okay, if you do a flood of low quality PRs, maintainers are going to want to take these drastic measures. If you do a flood of low quality articles, no one's going to want to read your Substack. If you do a flood of these songs that are meant to exploit monetization schemes, you're going to cause Spotify to change their policies, as YouTube also has done. So there are protective countermeasures that happen when you do this low quality stuff. So I don't know, call to action to society. Let's raise the quality bar.
I like that. Let's raise the quality bar, because the cat's already out of the barn. The big metaphors there.
Yeah.
All right. We will see you on the next one. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Can a robot write a symphony? Can a robot turn a canvas into a beautiful masterpiece?
Can you?